Lights on Blackfriars. My name is Aubrey Whitlock. I am the Director of Education Programs. Welcome to Lights on Blackfriars, a monthly pre-show lecture series. Lecture is redundant. A series that brings you all kinds of behind-the-scenes content from the people who make the art that you see on our stage. And tonight we are so excited to be joined by the director of our third repertory production, Chris Johnston, who will be introduced more fully by my colleague Leah Willis. So without further ado, give it up for our guests.
Oh my God, thank you. It is hard to imagine that anyone in the world, let alone our world, could be unfamiliar with Chris Johnston, but it is my joy and privilege to introduce him anyway. Chris is a musician, an actor, and a director whose work is beloved by his many devout fans, of which I am one, so everybody bear with me. Chris received his BFA from the University of Utah's Actor Training Program and his MFA in Shakespeare and Performance from our very own Mary Baldwin University, where he also teaches. He has worked in the professional theater realm for over 20 years as an actor and music director for such companies as Salt Lake Shakespeare, Black Dog Theater Company as a founding member, Egyptian Theater Company, and over 120 productions at the American Shakespeare Center. Earlier this spring, he directed Romeo and Juliet for the Wayne Theater. During his time at the ASC, he served as resident music director and actor manager for several years and delighted audiences with such iconic performances as Macbeth in Macbeth, Flaminio in John Webster's The White Devil, Don Amato in Love's Labour's Lost, the band leader in Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, the Fool in King Lear, Rosencrantz in both Hamlet and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, and I limited myself to those 7. But countless others. But today we are here to talk about his work as the director of our spring 2025 production of The Comedy of Errors. So you all know, I have some pre-prepared questions to ask Chris. We'll chat for about 30 minutes, and then I'll open it up to questions from you all. So prepare them accordingly. So Chris, what is your theatrical life story? So where are you from? How did you first get interested in theater? And what's the path that led you to where you are today?
Great question. Let's rewind to 7th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't make final cuts on the basketball team, and because I'm terrible at basketball, and I didn't want to go home early. So I was walking down the hall, I looked, I didn't see my name on the list, so I was walking down the hall and I saw, auditions for the school musical. My older sister does musicals, so I'll go do that. So I went and auditioned, and I read all the stage directions, and got cast as a dancer and an actor, and had a blast. And then I just kept doing that. I decided to go to the University of Utah Actor Training Program. Not because I knew I wanted to be an actor, I still wanted to be a musician first. That was always the goal, was music first. But I was like, well, I could go and play, because I was not a good student in undergrad. So I went and did theater and played music in Salt Lake. And during that time, I worked with an amazing artist named Jack Bessel. Some people have heard her. She is one of my favorite human beings of all time. And Jack taught me some really cool things about theater. She did this really great thing where she was like, we would do shows and she would bake bread, and then you would come to rehearsal. I mean, we were poor students, and so we would be hungry, and so she would feed us, and then physically, and then she would feed our souls to theater. And so Jack was somebody that I said, I'm going to just follow you everywhere. I support this world of theater that you are creating. So she came out here for a Blackfriars conference, and came back because she was one of my teachers at the U. And I was also teaching her how to drive at the time, which was really fun. And she's like, theater is amazing. You get to do Shakespeare, and you get to play music. And I said, well, that sounds awesome. I don't really like Shakespeare that much. I was like, I liked Sam Shepard. I liked Ionesco. That was my cup of tea. I like that kind of stuff. Beckett. And then she ended up taking a job out here. So I said, okay, I'm gonna follow her. So I went and auditioned out here. I came and auditioned for the tour, and I had not graduated yet from college. And the tour was that season. It was 2005 here. It was Much Ado and a musical, Return to the Forbidden Planet. And I did not get the job for the musical. I was like, no, it's my thing, I like music. But my audition was terrible. But I thank Jim Warner casting me because I was able to get my degree. And then I auditioned the next year. I came back out and auditioned and got cast out here. And did 2 tours back to back. And on my second tour, I met a lovely woman who is now my wife. We had 2 kids. But I was like, hey, I love this woman. I'm just going to be wherever she is. And she happens to be from Staunton. So after my second tour, I said, I'm done touring, but I'm going to stay here. So I went back to Utah, did some Salt Lake Shakespeare stuff, and then came back here and moved in with her, and then got a job in the box office and said, hey, if you need an actor or a musician, I'd love to work with you some more. And they brought me back in 2009, so I took about 6 months off. Brought me back in 2009 for the rent season. And that was the rent season where we did Summer Nights Touring, like 2 days where there's so much just relaxed. That was Demetrius, the Sarah Balance, Helena, yeah. And then the rest is history, really. But I came here wanting to play music first and theater second. And then I think it was probably around the time of the Wren seasons, doing that work with the same crew of actors and, you know, trying to follow original stage practices, whatever that means for this space. Year after year with similar characters that I started to realize how lovely I think the words in the book are, and the magic that exists with just words. And suddenly I was like, okay, I really love Shepard, but I really, really love Shakespeare.
Speaking of music, just going to follow up on that. When I first joined the company in 2012, I don't know if I made this up or if it's something that you actually said.
Okay.
So, but the urban legend was, the thing you said, that you would learn a new instrument every season.
That was the goal. Yeah,
That was the goal.
That was the goal. I came here knowing how to play the guitar
Okay.
and a little bit of piano.
And now?
And now I'm to play more stuff. I was like the rule growing up, I did bands in Salt Lake, that was my thing. And the rule in every band that I was in was don't let Chris sit behind the drums. Do not let it, because I was terrible. And, but playing, you know, back then we would do 30 minutes of music before the show, and then 15 for the interlude. And we were surrounded by amazing musicians everywhere, or musicians who were good at certain things. And so just that trial by fire was a great opportunity. Like, well, we're in rehearsal, and if you have the attitude to be in the room and want to work extra hard to play music, then we have space for you. So it's just, I love playing music, so that was the plus. So, I mean, that kind of fell off. You know, after a while, I started to run out of stuff. I'm still looking for an affordable lute, if anybody knows what I'm looking for.
Well, the banjo became quite iconic there for a while. So
Yeah. I bought a banjo when I moved to Virginia. It's like, that's what you do. You buy a banjo when you move to Virginia. And I was terrible at it. And I've had some really lovely, charming experiences with older gentlemen who I had no idea who they are, who would listen to me playing on front porches, and they would walk up and be like, you're doing that wrong. And they do something and be like, oh, that's better. And then they would walk off into the distance. So yeah, it's great. I like to pay that forward. Sorry.
Okay, so back to Shakespeare. Comedy of Errors is Shakespeare's shortest play, coming in at around 1,800 lines uncut, which means that you didn't have to cut much of anything from this production for time. However, we did cut some lines for other reasons. Can you shed light on your process of shaping the script for this production? What ended up going away and why?
Yeah, you know, I'm of the school of thought that theater should be 2 hours. Get in, get out. You know, the 2 hours trapped on stage, yes please. I don't like to sit that long. So, and yeah, Comedy of Errors is short, and I want the play to go fast, I want the text to hit, and jump on the cue line, so really, yeah, we should be able to be in and out real fast. But then there's that curveball of a cast of 9, where the last scene of the play, there's 14, 15 characters on stage. So people have to start going, just to try to tell that story. So that's where a lot of the cuts really started coming. I mean, I would love to have chorus on stage for the last scene. I'd love to have Luciana on stage for the last scene. but they had to go to try to still tell the story of families reuniting, as opposed to just all of the couples that we have paired off within this play. So that's where the cutting came. It came from necessity, really. I remember on my first read through of the Aegean speech, I was like, is there anything that we can just take out of this speech to make it a little faster? Because I really think it's important that that actor just stands on the stage and says the words. The story's amazing. It's so good. And I feel like doing anything else beyond just the words sometimes gets in the way of that. And Chris Seiler can't do it and do it well. So I was like, is there anything we can do just to trim it down a little bit so the audience, we get to the comedy and there was only one line that I could cut. There's only one. Everything else I feel like has to be there. And that one line I was like, well, halfway through I said, do we put it back there? We did. And then, then through the course of rehearsal, we cut some other stuff. We would work things. There was in Act 5, there's the Duke kind of sums up everything that just happened in the middle of Aegeus and Abas's speech. And I was looking, and the actor was like, can we just cut this and get to it? I was like, yes, always. If we can get to it faster, I would love to. Absolutely. We're no longer paid per word these days, so it should be fine. Yeah.
Comedy also has a whole lot of violence embedded in its text, and much of it's between the Antiphili and the Dromios, and all that's very funny in this production. It is a comedy, after all, of errors. So how did you go about finding the comedy in those moments and generally building and shaping them, given that the general premise of masters beating their slaves is not funny?
It is not funny. No, it's not, right? Yeah, we have to lean into the trope of the comedy. And, the idea of commedia in masters beating slaves is pretty prevalent. And this play, I think, borrows heavily from that world. So I think that's the end that we need to look at is looking at it through that lens. So, but that said, it doesn't mean that the violence should be upsetting. It should be silly. So, working with JP, our fight director for this, I was like, I just want the fights to not look like domestic violence whatsoever. We want to stay away from that. That's not the conversation we want to have with this play. But we want it to look like a little bit of like WWE. Like the violence still needs to be there. That's still that relationship. In working through it, I'm a big fan of actor-led staging. I want them to have some ideas, and then we take that idea and have another idea, and take that idea and have another idea. Because then it looks like it comes from their body. It looks like they're bought into it right away, as opposed to me saying, you do this thing that I can do, but maybe your body can't do that, right? So we started with that, and to that end, the relationship started to get a little like the Syracusian pair. It was a little like brotherly. Was the violence? It's like they've been together their whole lives, so the violence is a little more like like the way that my brother and I would punch each other in the face. It's not okay, but we would still do it, and we would still love each other. Usually. Sometimes we meet a weekend, but I think that's the idea. Silly like taps on the sides. It's silly. It was the main goal.
There's a what really at some point.
Yeah. And I remember asking JP while he was staging some of the comedy. I said, JP, I think we need a wet Billy here. And he's like, oh yeah. He always says yes, and then has more ideas on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. So the opening of this production includes a pre-show speech skit, and then a final host speech song that leads directly into the top of show. And it's a spectacle. It's impressive and fun and exciting, and it involves everybody, and how did you come up with that? And what was the process of building it?
Great, yeah, it's, I think it goes back to that first speech. It's just so long, right? We need to build the world of the play right away. And I think the play is funny. Every part of the play is funny except for the first scene. And we need to spend so much time building the world of the play so that we can laugh, and the laughs come from the world of the play, and the laughs don't come from actors saying, laugh at me now. So that's where it started, with that idea. And the current global climate doesn't necessarily, it's not a great place, but just listening to my podcasts every day and then reading the first lines of the play, it's like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of parallels between what's happening between Syracuse and Ephesus and what's happening with us, with this trade war or that they're experiencing. And if you can't afford to stay here, you're going to die, or we're going to kick you out. I was like, wow, that's all really serious. Okay, so that's a parallel to today. That's also right here in the text. Thanks, Shakespeare. But also, if you just think about the situation that all of the characters are in at the beginning, like the moment of love. Aegeus is looking for his son, who left looking for his brother. And his son, who left, has been gone for 7 years. And Aegeus has only been gone for 2. So he gave, I think that math is right. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. So he gave his son a long time, and then after 5 years, he's like, I'm getting older. I'm not getting younger. I'm going to go search. And so Aegeus is at the end. He is really at the end of all of his options. And now he's ended up in the one place where he can't be seen, and he can't get caught, and he got caught, and he has no money. And now his journey of trying to find his son is gone, essentially. So that's not a comedy. I think. And Antipholus, looking for his brother, his first speech about how Isaac world is a drop of water. He's so the melancholy is so deep within this character, trying to find his brother. It's not funny. Everybody's losing the battle of just existence, it seems like. It doesn't seem like things are great with Antipholus of Ephesus and his wife. Things are not well at home. And there doesn't seem like they're working on it too much. They're just existing, which is also not funny. I think that if we take that as seriously as possible every time, then once the jokes start happening, and once the things start going wrong, and people don't understand why they're going wrong, I'm supposed to be in a terrible spot. Why are you giving me all of these? Why are you giving me a bag of money? That starts to be funny. Why won't my wife let me into my house? Well, if somebody's up there. Things start to be funny. Suddenly the violence starts to come from somewhere. And even though the violence is stylized, it's still like it's still coming from an honest place. I just don't like, I don't want the jokes to come from a dishonest area. So to that, and also like with the song, I've always wanted to get used on the stage, and I've never had a chance. And
Are you in charge of that?
yeah, I know, but I tried to listen to everybody, take everybody's voices in, and then I can't just do just me. Except for this, I could. So that was the one song that I wanted. Summer England was the music director. She was in charge of all the music. She did a great job. But that was the one song that was like, we got to do this. We got to open the show with it. And we've never had 3 drum kits on the stage at the same time before. And I was like, I want to do that too. So we've got two kick drum and tom sets up there, and then you have a cocktail kit here. And the day that we worked that song was we just got all 3 drums together, and I was just teaching them all the rhythm for it. It sounded so good. It was so cool. I was like, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be loud, and it is loud. But I felt like if that's the motif of this world of Ephesus. We build this idea that we need to believe that it's dangerous to be here, just subconsciously. And then as the text starts to get further and further away from that, that's fine. And I don't even think that we needed to return to it necessarily until the Duke comes back in the end and you hear the drum beat one more time, just to put us back there a little bit to remember things are serious, but now things have gone so zany that it's okay.
So you start like as low as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
And you have 24 hours of zany.
Yeah.
And everything's great.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You just gotta earn it, right? You gotta earn it.
I don't believe we had 3 available members in the cast. Did you not teach our stage manager how to play the cocktail drum, did it?
Well, yeah, well, he was already playing. He plays it, he just doesn't use his foot.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you have to use your foot. Because
Is that required?
yeah, well, it fills out the sonic range. It's like everything's, and it's a boom, 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 boom. And if we have 2 phones up there and no phone down there, it's going to sound boneless, sure. So yeah, it connects the sound, but it's also, I mean, Brendan, great with it. He has now started to add the foot into other songs, which is awesome. Yeah, exactly right.
Okay, so you've worked on over 120 ASC productions, your time here as an actor director in our Renaissance seasons, as an actor manager, as a musician, as a music captain. In what other ways did your previous extensive knowledge of working in this particular unique space inform your approach to directing this production?
Oh, that's a great question. I know what I don't necessarily want to say I know what works, because that I feel like excludes a lot of option, right? But I know what I like of options that do work. So I think that takes away a lot of guesswork. It makes me think, so with this space, the architecture is beautiful, right? There's no doubt about it. And the second any of you walk in, the first thing you do is your eyes go to the stage. Because every single seat, the way the whole room is built, eyes go to the stage. That's where it goes. That's where the action has to happen, period. And then the other cool thing that we have is we have the words. And the words have a lot of architecture. I mean, you are our text coach. You help us all with the architecture of the words, right? And so, I mean, the simple thing is if you have your faith in the architecture of the space, and trust this, and have your faith in the architecture of the words, and trust those, then the magic happens. And that's all it is. There was a moment in, I think, the second week of rehearsal, where I asked our props master, Conrad, I asked him there's a door that they have here that has you can open it through the top, you can open it through the bottom, and it's got like a little spy thing, and it's really fun. It's a fun door. And I was like, well, let's get this fun door out here and try to see if we can't use that for the door scene. So for our first read-through, we would do scene work, we would do table work, and then we'd get up on our feet and just play around with it and then move on. And then it would be like a rough sketch, and then we come back to it. What we like, what we didn't, let's keep moving. So we played with it, and we found some fun, silly things with it, because it's a fun door. And then, it was the staging day for that scene, and we had the door, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, how are we going to make the door work? How are we going to suspend reality so that a door can come through the curtains and then stand here and then turn it around, and then where else in the play are we going to have to do that so that it makes sense and it's part of the world? How is this going to work? And I had the actors come and stand, and we were just about to start, and I said, no, we're not using this. I'm breaking my rule. You have to trust the architect. So I put the door away, and I said, sorry, Conrad, for carrying this heavy thing up, and they also carried the stairs. Sorry, we're just going to use the space and trust the words. And so that's what we do. I'm sure we would have found amazing, fun bits with the door. I think that's the reason the door was made, for display.
It was, yeah, for the touring 2018.
Sure, oh, because they don't have
Don't have the doors!
Anyway, but we have 2, so yeah, it's that was but I mean, even through 120 productions, I'm still learning every time. So that was a great learning moment. But yeah, don't try to rethink the wheel. I mean, it's nice to innovate, but you still have to have that faith. It's why I wanted to use just these 3 doors. I didn't want to use house entrances. Because somebody speaks, all of our eyes are trained to go to the door. Somebody speaks back there, the impact of their entrance is lessened right away. It's like, oh, who's talking? Suddenly we've broken the world, right? We've lost our drive. It might.
And we have no evidence that they would have been able to do that. So as far as we know, they only had 3 tours.
As far as, oh yeah, I mean, and when they would go on tour, they might have less than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, as promised, I talked for about 30 minutes. It's fun, and so now it is your turn. If you have questions for our fabulous director, Chris Johnston, I am happy to call on you and let you ask them. Yes.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about your music, which obviously you're well known for, but I also know you as a clown. How did your clowning talents lend to the directing of comedy there?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is like is an honest answer. Because clowning is like it's a personal thing. Everybody's body's different, so everybody clowns different. And I mean, Shakespeare's clowns are all very different. I also think the two Dromios are very different clowns in this play. So it's got to be up to, I think you need to let the actor's body figure out what their moving physicality is around the clowning. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to shy away from a fart joke. But it requires trust. It requires trust that the actors are going to be able to hit the jokes. That said, if there's jokes that I feel like are being missed, it's that subtle line of like trying to tell them that there's a joke there without telling them that there's a joke there. Sometimes I feel like is the trick. Sometimes it's like you're just missing a joke. Here it goes. How do you hit that? But I think for this, with this play, there's so many options for jokes that I feel like it's almost better to stand back and let them start to hit theirs. And then if there's one that I really miss, I'll try to go for it and try to get it. But they're finding jokes on their own, so I'm just going to let them hit that and hope that the audience thinks it's funny too. Beat the crickles.
Are some epic fart jokes. Don't miss them.
Well, it's in the text.
Again, words are butt
That's right. Just next row.
But I have to say, when you found out words of Berlin, that it's also words of Butlin, when we found that, remember I sure gonna use that. Yeah, it was so good, I made a t-shirt out of it. Yeah, my words of Butlin all the time. I think that, and I think I sold it to you. I hope you did.
In that production, it was the shark that I did 10 lines later that didn't work.
Here's too much.
Yeah, here's too
Yeah.
much.
That's more pearls.
Yeah, there it is.
So Shakespeare loved butts. It's in the text.
There we go.
Yeah. Farts have always been funny, and they will always be funny.
Sure, yeah. I say sure.
Why not? Yes, my friend.
Yes, so you talked a bit about your process of repeating the script itself. I'm curious about your process of taking words on the page, putting them onto the stage. And do you have a pretty clear vision from the start of what you want your stage to look like? Or do you still play around with it, try some things out? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing about the lucky thing about this place is that I have a really clear vision of what the stage looks like because it's this, right? And I don't think that for the most part you need to put anything on. I think most stuff get in the way. And then with the bodies on stage, like the actors on stage, I have some. I like to do anchor points. So like before we rehearse, I will have entrances and exits for every scene. And if it's a scene that has business, that's more than just the stuff that can be generated through rehearsal with actors talking. Like, oh, there's a table here, and somebody needs to throw water in their face, or there needs to be violence here, or I don't know, something like that. We need to somebody needs to jump from the balcony and die. Like King John or something like that. Those things, those big things, you want to have ideas for. I don't know. I think about like the first scene for Titus, right? Like all 900 lines. You're gonna want more than just your entrances and exits with that. You're gonna want to know where the camps are, where people need to stand to tell that story, and then you can futz it out. I feel like the more people on stage, the more you need to think about that. The less people on stage, you can kind of let the actors generate it. And then if they don't generate it, hopefully you'll have it. They'll always come up with something, and then you can shift it and you would just, big miss.
That last scene is always.
Everybody
Everybody in the cast, come back out. Stand somewhere.
Yeah, and can you imagine with 15 actors? So
Yeah, can.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yes.
What's the creative process that goes into choosing the songs pre-show and after show? Who makes the decisions? How do you come up with it?
It's Summer England is doing it right now. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Summer does, she asks for music from the cast, and then she picks the songs. And then what she did with me, that's as far as what I understand what happened. And then she suggested a bunch of the songs to me. And then I said, great, I just want to do this one song by Muse. And then we talked about the song over a little bit to try to accommodate how to get into the second half of the show. That's one thing that's worth thinking about is, what is that last song in the second half? How to push you forward.
And just to give a little bit more logistical detail, Summer will solicit 3 to 5 songs from everybody involved in the production, including us over in the administrative offices. We can suggest things too. And then she calls through that. She listens to everything, like Chris did when he was music captain, so he didn't just put Muse on stage the whole time. Listens to everything, and then whittles that down based on resources and licensing. So what can we play based on the skills and the instruments that we have in-house, and what are we legally licensed to play based on our agreement with ASCAP, I believe. And then that will do a lot of culling for you of the list. Sometimes I know Summer goes through a few iterations of her preferred set list before she finds songs that meet both of those qualifications. And then it is a conversation with the director to make sure that fitting the vision, if the director has any specific requests, making sure that we are able and licensed to fit those requests in. So it's a very collaborative process. And then, as Summer likes to say, her job from that point on is very much resource management, putting people in the right places and making sure that they have the time and structure that they need to sing lead on this song, play backup on this song, take drum lessons from Chris to make sure you can use your foot on the cocktail drum kit for this song, etc. Yes.
Hey, Chris, you said 120 productions?
Over.
Over 120 productions.
Yeah.
Some of them rain shows, but many of them directed.
Uh-huh.
This is your first time directing solo in here. So have you learned any lessons from sitting out here, looking back this way about the space that you didn't know?
Great question. No. I learned a lot about pace. A lot more about pace in the overall world of things. Like, it's, as an actor, it's like you get your scene and you perform your scene as best as you can. You get the words, you say them honestly to your scene partner, and you react. That's the goal. That's what we're shooting for here. And so, to that end, sometimes, you'll find places where it's like, well, I think the pauses here is important. But seeing it from the outside, it's like, that pause isn't as important as you think it is. We need to move past that. The moment is important, but is there a way that we can make it as important without putting as much air into it? Because it's important that every scene that an actor acts thinks it's the most important thing that they're doing. We have to think that, otherwise, why are we here, right? It would be boring. It would be boring to just watch people think, I don't care about this. So I'd rather watch a peanut butter and jelly sandwich get toasted. So as long as they care, it's hard to convince somebody. And I certainly remember being given notes like, take the air out of that. You've got to make it like, no, this scene is important. Yes, it is. And you should hold on to that. Yes, it is. But for the greater good, it needs to be a little more concise. I think also, that's the first thing. Also, the second thing, which I've been kind of fussing around with, like teaching a little bit, and now with directing, it's stop logic policing yourself out of the room. It's like the words exist for this space, and these words, they went on tour in spaces that did not have these stores, as we just talked about. So we need to stop saying, okay, but that was where the store was, and this is where, that's where the Jerusalem room is, and that's the battlefield. We gotta stop that. The audience gets it because it's in the words. And I remember being as an actor in Ren season, sometimes like hitting the brakes, being like, well, wait a minute. Where did you come from, and how are we gonna get there? For the most part, the audience is gonna follow along. Like, I think for most of the stories or the plays, the story is more important than the location. I don't know if I support that statement. I would want to do more research, but let's throw that out right now. And just because we're interested in the interaction between the characters themselves. And when location is important, like Milford Haven, we know we're in Milford Haven. We're going to be told that. Throw that right now. Like this.
Yes.
This is my first visit to Blackfriars.
Welcome.
I'm really excited to be here. I come from the world of outdoor Shakespeare, and so I love the audience interactiveness of doing the lights on, like it says up in the lobby. I'm just curious if you have any like stories of like great audience interactions that you've had in the space, considering you've done over 100 interactions.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. The problem is like it all blends into mashed potatoes afterward. And they come up at different points. I'll give you two. First one was playing Flaminio in White Devil. And after my sister, the actor playing my sister exited, and it was clear that I had just lied to her up and down and was manipulating her, the audience all just booed at me. I was like, I'm working hard here, people. I need your help. That was lovely. I love that. My favorite one that I feel like just brought down the house, and I don't think that we righted the ship for about 10 minutes, was it was the Golang scene in Much Ado, and Benjamin Kearns was playing Benedict, and I was Claudio, and Benedict had a moment where he would creep under in the moat right here. We'd creep across the moat, and while we were saying our lines, and there was a lady right here who was so into what we were doing on stage that she seems to have forgotten that there was an actor hiding. And so as Ben was scooting across, the lady saw him and went, ah! And hit him! Totally I mean, yeah, we all just lost it. We didn't know what to do, and the lady was mortified. And Ben was like, can I cross past you? That was a possible one.